guys, it's your girl Lori J back for another episode of 38 and Dating. And today we're going to talk about the X Factor. We're also going to talk about feeding your faith, fantasy, or your fears. Which one are you doing? All right. So thank you all for listening. I appreciate everybody who has commented, texted, found me by happenstance on Spotify. Thank you. Someone recently just shouted me out saying that. I'm sorry. I don't have your username handy, but thank you. Thank you. And to everyone who's listening. And let me tell you this, on the next episode, the next one or two, tell me if you guys want an update on my dating life. Sometimes I'm sharing a lot of stories from the past, but I'm still dating. So let me know if you guys want an update, like an official update, or if you want to still hear more fun stories and lessons I've learned and hilarity of it all. Also, I'm going to be bringing on more guests. I know I keep saying it. I haven't done it yet. Y'all, my schedule is just so busy. It's crazy. I'm actually leaving today to go to New York for an awards ceremony. They're honoring me with a 40 under 40 award for my industry. So yay! Very exciting. I have like my whole family in tow. And colleagues and other people that I love. So it's really, really exciting. But I was like, I have to record a new podcast because I've been telling everybody in Instagram land that I was recording a new one and then I didn't. So sorry, y'all. I have just been so swamped. I'm actually supposed to be heading out in 45 minutes to catch my flight to New York, but priorities. I think I read on Malik Teal's Instagram that some people aren't where they want to be because they're not willing to work for it. Well, I am willing to work for this podcast because it is a labor of love, a passion project. It's all those things. So I was like, you know what? I'm getting out of this bed. I packed last night till 2 a.m. and I am going to do this podcast. I have things to share with the peoples. Anyway, so let's get right into the episode today, y'all. All right. So the X Factor. I was watching the Red Table Talk. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It's Jada Pinkett Smith Facebook watch show. And this season, her first guest was her husband, or is her husband, Will Smith. And the Red Table Talk is a round table, and they sit literally around a red table of 3 generations of women. It's Jada, her mother, and her daughter, Willow. And they bring on guests, and they talk about really raw and honest things. And I love the show. Like, love. I want to say it's like 30 minutes or so. I'm not sure, but they've had Cookie Johnson on, the wife of Magic Johnson, and her child, EJ, who I believe is non-binary. But EJ is fabulous. And I'm fascinated with EJ. And they talked about, coming out to his father, or I'm sorry, their father. And if y'all don't know, I believe that non-binary people, and I believe, so correct me if I'm wrong, y'all, please, I'm looking to be educated. I believe that they want to be referred to as they. I have only dabbled in this, so please forgive me if I'm getting it wrong. Anyway, EJ talked about coming out to Magic, and Cookie talked about how she felt when she started to see signs with EJ. Anyway, very fascinating. So back to this. So the first guest on this season is Will Smith. And I think he did a part last season. He and Jada talked about their relationship at length. If you have not watched it, go watch it. It's on Facebook. Red Table Talk. Just search it. And they talked about how they basically had to destroy their marriage in order to rebuild it. But what they really talked about too was, giving each other the freedom to be themselves. Right? So my first question in the X Factor, because Will has an ex, Cherie, and he and Jada and Cherie have spent Christmases together. He really not coached. He really helped Jada understand that Cherie was his first child's mother and that there needed to be a certain level of respect between the two of them as they were both important women in his life. Even after they had divorced. And so the question is, can exes really be friends? Whether it's your ex-spouse, your ex-lover, can exes really be friends? That is a huge question. One of my girlfriends in college said that when she and her boyfriend, who was also a good friend of mine, started dating, they had a rule: no exes. You can't be friends with them. You can't talk to them. And they're married now and still married to this day with 2 beautiful kids. And I always thought that was fascinating because I was like, wow, like they went ahead and agreed to not be friends with their exes. And how great of them to protect their relationship. And now that I've had some exes, I'm friends with most of my exes. And if I'm not friends with them, I'm at least cool with them, cool enough that if I run into them in the street, there's no animosity. There's no hate. There's nothing. It's just, oh, they were in my past. So do I think exes can be friends? Absolutely. I think it really depends on the ex, and it depends on how you guys ended the relationship. You guys know I have a 10-year ex-boo, and he's still very close with my family. He and I are still really great friends. Um, I don't think there will ever be a day that he and I are not friends. And it's funny because I was conflicted for a very long time in terms of the breakup. Like when we first broke up, he I think said something like, "Oh, why can't we be friends?" And I was just like, "Oh, well, it's too hard and blah blah blah." Blah." And it was really more so I felt like I needed to create space in separation because it was so much gray area. Oh my God, we got to talk about the death of the gray area. Gray area is deadly. Okay, let's just say that whether you're dating and it's ambiguous or you've broken up and it's ambiguous, gray area is deadly, y'all. It is deadly. It is the vast unknown. It is, the sea of who knows what the hell is going on, right? Like it's just bad. Like that's just my interpretation of gray area. I was on a dating panel recently for the Black Bourbon Society. Shout out to the Black Bourbon Society, to Samara and Tracy for that event. And by the way, you can find them on Instagram, Black Bourbon Society. And a girl asked me, I was on a dating panel, and it was great because it was the first dating panel I got due to this podcast. But one of the girls in the audience asked me, was it ambiguous, when you started dating, a certain guy, and did he like say, "Oh, let's move the relationship to the next level," etc. So I realized that ambiguity is such a big thing in dating and relationships. And I just think it's deathly because if you don't know, to me, it's kind of your answer. Like if a guy or a woman is stringing you along and you're scared or you haven't yet asked the question or they haven't brought up the notion of defining the relationship, I think you kind of know, especially if you're in a place where you're ready to be in a relationship. Like if it's just strung out and the person never approaches it and you never approach it, you got to really ask yourself, is this really the right thing for me? Like, don't you want somebody to stand up and say, "Hey, I want to be with you. I want us to be together." Or you do it. I'm not saying that, a guy should do it, a girl should do it, like whoever. But don't you want to be affirmative and assertive and know definitively that you want to be with that person? Like that is a good feeling. I'm just here to tell you. That is a great feeling. No guessing games, no doubts. I know we hear stories about people who are in relationships where, the person went and got them. And I've always believed, this is just me. This is Lori speaking. I'm not speaking for all people. But when somebody really wants you, especially when a man really wants you, there is nothing he will not do, come hell or high water, to get you. Okay? Like, he could be succumb with all kinds of pressures at work and things he has to do in his personal life. If he meets that person, there is nothing you can do to stop him from getting that. Like and I think that goes for everybody, honestly, but especially for men. I date men, so I only can speak from my experience. But when a man really wants you, he will climb the highest mountain to get you and not lose you. And that's just real, y'all. And if somebody ain't showing you that kind of effort or love or assuredness, then ask yourself, is this really what I want? Yeah, it feels good in the moment. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, he's funny. Yeah, she's great. Blah, blah, blah. But are they giving you what you want and need? Like, do you feel at peace with them. That is one of the biggest things that I've realized in dating is I had to realize that happiness is really about peace. And I think Jada Pinkett Smith said that, to be honest. So instead of searching for happiness, I search for peace. I just want to be at peace. Like, don't have me feeling crazy or emotions up and down. That's true. Some of that will come anyway because I'm an overthinker. It is what it is. I don't know who all's an overthinker out there, but me, ding, 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 raise your hands. Um, but don't cause me added stress. Don't have me out here wondering what the hell is going on. And I've been in those situations. So, um, it's funny. So anyway, back to Will and Jada's Red Table Talk, which I found fascinating this week. Again, please watch it. Support. You know, they had to deal with exes and they found a way to be cordial and then be friends. I'm talking about Jada and Cherie. And now I feel like they respect each other so much. I mean, they're around each other all the time, and I think that's a beautiful thing. I have friends with kids, with their exes, and I know that's a struggle. That is a struggle game. One of my girlfriends had a child in college, and her child's father, ended up going overseas. He played professional sports, and it was a struggle game to raise that child together, to raise their daughter together. And the daughter is now 18, but and my friend is married now to a wonderful guy who's my big brother. And it's interesting because she has to be cordial with her ex for her daughter's sake, but there also have to be boundaries. So it really depends on you whether you can be friends with your ex or not. If you need boundaries, create them. If you need, to share those boundaries with them, do that. And I think there's only a benefit to sharing your boundaries because it teaches someone to respect you and it teaches someone to respect the relationship that you feel like you can have with them. So it depends. What do you guys think? Can you really be friends with your exes? And I think that kind of dovetails into another point. Can men and women be friends? Right? Like platonic friends. And it's funny because I've dated guys who have women friends. And I'm the type of person where I like to be the priority woman in a man's life if we're together. But if you have friends and they're truly platonic, like I don't really have a problem with it. I won't say that I never feel some kind of way because I do. But when I meet the friends, the female friends, and they're cool, then it kind of abates my concerns or fears. And I think the fears are less about the person in particular and more just about knowing that obviously men and women are attracted to each other. One of my good guy friends told me, I know, I'm not a hypocrite. I have guy friends too. I get it. But one of my good guy friends told me that men and women who are friends have some level of attraction to each other. And I was like, wow, really? Because he and I have been friends forever, like 2 decades. And I'm not even kidding. And I wouldn't want to date him, but he's my good friend. But he is an attractive guy. I can appreciate that. And a nice guy. And so I was like, well, maybe so, He and I are just platonic friends and always have been, always will be. But, maybe there is something to that. It's almost like your friend circle, period. Most of the friends in your friend circle are probably attractive people. And whether you are attracted to them or not is different. But they're probably decent looking people. So I think that, men and women can be friends. I think that when you're dating somebody and they have friends of the opposite sex, you really have to have trust. It's funny because I used to think, I don't know about that. For example, if a guy's dating me and he says he has his best female friend sleeping on his couch, I'm going to be like, well, and I'm not going to say, no, I won't date you. But it depends on how involved the female friends are in their lives to me, or the male friends or whoever. Right. So I don't know. I know I wouldn't feel completely comfortable with a scenario like that. But if he has female friends that are like his guideposts and who kind of are just friends and they talk through things, then why not? I mean, maybe these women can shed light on how women think, feel, whatever from their perspective and kind of help them evolve. Because we're all trying to evolve, y'all. We really are. And I think that talking to people of the opposite sex and having friends of the opposite sex help you evolve. And so I'm here for that. But yeah, I do think men and women can be friends. When people say no, I feel like they must have trust issues, which means you're not at peace with either your past or your present. So for me, sure, have female friends. Because at the end of the day, if a guy slips up or if he messes around or whatever, there's nothing you can do about that. If it happens, it's going to happen. And you have to deal with that then. But I'm not the police. I'm not your coach. I'm not your teacher. I am not, your probation officer. Like, live life, be you, do you, have fun. But just don't break my trust. And if you do, then we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. So I don't worry about that and send myself into a tizzy. Not saying that I don't feel some kind of way sometimes. I'm human. I'm flawed. I'm completely flawed. And sometimes I might get butt hurt. Over certain things. But, you just have, I look at it as an opportunity to grow. Like, okay, if I'm butt hurt about this guy hanging with his female friend, then why am I butt hurt? Like, what am I supposed to be learning here? Patience, trust. What is it that I'm trying to learn? So ask yourself, what is it that you need to learn in certain situations in order to evolve? Because I honestly think that being in a relationship or dating is more about your evolution than the exercise itself. So think to yourself, when you're feeling some kind of way, what am I supposed to be learning here? Is there something I can learn? Is there something that can help me evolve or grow or become better? And really think about it. And it is literally a deep self-reflection, and it will not be easy, and it will sometimes be painful to make certain realizations about yourself. But you got to do it. And I've definitely had those exercises. Like, I've realized about myself that I appreciate quality time together because it reassures me when I'm dating, right? So if we're not spending time together, then sometimes I can have doubts. And I had to think to myself, wow, why do I feel doubt? If the person is doing nothing but showing me they're absolutely here for me and with this relationship or with this dating situation, then why am I feeling doubtful? Why do I feel like I need to be in someone's presence to feel assured? And so then I started to dig deeper and I said, well, maybe it stems from something in my childhood. My parents are divorced. I don't know if everybody knows that. My parents divorced when I was 13, but they separated when I was 10. And I think a big part of me feeling assured is having someone present, because I know my parents split and my dad wasn't always present physically in the household, but he was always present in my life and still is. And I'm a huge daddy's girl. So I'm just thankful for my dad. And their relationship was what it was. And I really had to work through letting go of the demons of my parents' relationship. Have you guys ever had to do that? Like, have you ever thought about your perspective on relationships and where it stems from? And if there's any part of it that stems from your parents' relationship, have you ever worked through that? Because that's something I really had to work through. Like, my parents met in a city in Georgia, and they only saw each other, I want to say like 6 or 8 times before they got engaged, got married a few months later or whatever. And for the longest time, I was like, oh my God, my parents' marriage didn't work. That sucks. I don't want to be married ever because I don't ever want to be divorced. That's a surefire way to not be divorced. Just don't get married. And I thought that for the longest time. And I was like, oh, I don't want kids. I have my siblings. I felt like I helped my mom with them enough that I see what raising kids is all about. I'm good on that. I've been helping for a while. But when I got to college, I started to work through my parents' relationship by asking questions of both my dad and my mom. And I came to realize that my interpretation of their relationship was inaccurate. I thought they had done the traditional dating thing and dated for 2, 3 years and then got married, and then things just fell apart and they were blindsided. But I think that, one, they were young, and back in the day, people got married young. 2, they didn't really know each other well. And I don't think you need time to know each other well, but I do think you need those hard conversations, challenges, things to work through to know someone well. And they didn't have that because they were living in separate cities. And three, I think they had different expectations out of marriage or different fantasies of marriage, and they didn't align. So once I realized that their marriage was not necessarily fated to be successful in the first place, and they tried. Hell, nobody gets a manual when you get married, right? Nobody gets instructions on how to make sure this marriage lasts. There are all kind of books, all kinds of things you can read, but there is no surefire way, right? Everybody has to just take their own try at it. And I realized that, though their try at marriage didn't work, that doesn't mean that my relationships wouldn't work in the future, right? So I had to unravel that and I had to go deep. And it was hard to let go of my long held desire to not get married because I never wanted to get divorced. But then I thought, that's stupid as hell. When I started to think about building a life and what I wanted out of a life, and I thought about it being by myself, I was like, well, okay, that's not cool. It'd be great to share it with somebody. So that's how I kind of unraveled my issues with my parents' marriage and how it affected me in dating and got to a better place. So all that to say, guys, when you're feeling some kind of way about something, whether you're feeling negative or hurt or confused, whatever it is, just do a really good check-in with yourself and try to dig deep down and figure out why it is you feel that way. Like, what's the core of it? Like, where did it start? Where does it stem from? Right? I mean, we all have to do the work if we want to get to a better place. And all I can say is it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. All right. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was feeding your faith, fantasy, or fears. And that's another topic that I got from the Red Table Talk because Will and Jada spoke about how they had to destroy their marriage. And I don't think they went into it knowing they were destroying it. I think it was destroyed by virtue of the challenges they went through. And once it was destroyed, they had to rebuild it with their own rules and their own boundaries and guidelines. And the rumors aren't true. They talk about the rumors of them being swingers and Scientologists and everything like that. And they basically refute that, which is fine. Hell, cool. People in the public eye always get so many rumors about them. So I'm glad they addressed that. But Jada and Will talked about the fact that they were wearing masks in their relationship and that most people do when they meet somebody and you try to get to know them in the early stages. People are wearing a mask, and I totally agree with that. I'm guilty of it too. I've worn masks trying to fit into the idea of what somebody thinks I should be. I've totally done that. Heck, with the older guy, I did that. And, he was super religious and this and that. And I love God. So I was like, great, this guy loves God. A lot of people won't say that or do that. And so, but his people were very much kind of holy rollers. And that was fine. I had no judgment, but, that wasn't for me. And I was wearing a mask. But what I didn't realize was he was too. He absolutely was. So I got to tell y'all about feeding your faith, fantasy, or fears. When you're thinking of relationships, do a check-in with yourself and see if you're feeding your faith, meaning not your doubts. You're feeding your faith instead of your doubts in the relationship. Are you feeding a fantasy, some preconceived notion that you've had about relationships overall, whether it's marriage or dating? Do you sometimes say, oh, well, I thought when we were married, we'd be like this. Or I thought that when we finally said we're going to be boyfriend and girlfriend, it would be like that. Are you feeding a fantasy? A one-sided fantasy? Or are you feeding your fears, also known as doubts? Are you feeding fears that you've had about relationships from the past? Is there a fear you need to let go of? And my auntie coached me through this, about letting go of fears, letting go of what the exes have done, letting go of my parents' relationship. I almost got emotional right there, y'all. I am getting emotional because it's real. Your fears are not there to help you in the future. They're there to try to hold you back, and you've got to let go of those. And sometimes they're there and you don't realize they're there. And I'm so blessed to have an auntie who knows me so well and knows when I'm feeding my fears. And she coaches me through it. Ugh, that's love. Find you somebody who will help you get coached through your fears. Find you somebody that knows you and will coach you through those doubts and fears because you need that. It's hard to see it when you're just living life and you're being yourself, but they creep up. So find somebody or ask somebody today, hey, have you seen me feed my fears? Have you seen me, feed my doubts? Can you let me know when I'm doing that so that I don't do it anymore because I think it's holding me back? Find somebody, for real. Real talk. So anyway, back to the Will and Jada Red Table Talk with Willow and Adrian. I think her name is Adrian. It's Adrian. They talked about the mask in the fantasy. And my question to you guys is, how long does it take to take the mask off? And I'm asking myself that question too. And I don't think there's a certain amount of time, but I do think that we all have to have a healthy understanding and awareness of the fact that we have a mask on, especially when you're early dating, right? And I think that mask will come off the safer you feel emotionally in your dating situation or relationship. But I think that should be a goal, is to just start with less of the mask if you can. Like, I wouldn't trust everybody and their mama because you can't tell everybody everything. Real talk. I'm from the South. I don't play that. But it would be great if we could be our authentic selves. And one of my friends says that the word authentic is bullshit because everybody says it. It's like a catchphrase. And he might be right. But just be you. Do you and be the real you. And work toward that as a goal in any relationship, a friendship, dating, marriage, the unraveling of a relationship. Be you and try to be the real you. So here's my funny story for this episode. I know y'all are waiting for it. So the older guy that I dated, who was like 10 years older than me, he had his mask on so hard, y'all, and I was so fooled. I could not see it. And I think I beat myself up about it for a long time. Probably even today, sometimes I'm like, how the hell did you not see that? But this dude lived like 15 minutes away from me, y'all, and would only come see me on the weekends and only like one day on the weekend. That should have been a red flag by itself. And so one time as the relationship was going on and we dated for 9 months, I could tell that he was kind of pulling back, or he was being just disrespectful of my time. Like, he would change times all the time when we were supposed to meet, not let me know that he was going to church or invite me, like little things like that. But we're still supposed to be in a relationship, right? But I had my mask on and I was walking on eggshells, just trying to, be the good girlfriend or whatever. I even hate saying that word because I'm like, that was not a real relationship, but whatever. Anyway, so we like probably 6, 7 months in, when things were already kind of iffy, but we were still together. He called me like at 11. No, I'm sorry. He texted me at like 11 and he said something like, "Hey, do you want to do brunch today?" And he always treated me like I was his constituent. Like, he always felt like he was the mayor. He'd be like, "Hey, Lori, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Hey, girl. Hey." What? We've been dating for how long? And you calling me like you would see somebody like who you haven't seen in 10 years. "Hey, how you doing? How you been?" Every single time, y'all. Like, that's wild. That should have been the first flag. Anyway, you know me. I was, getting up there in the years, and I was just trying to make it work in terms of the years of my age. Even though I'm still young, y'all. Holla. So anyway, so he hit me up on text and was like, "Hey, do you want to meet for brunch?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds good." And if you know me, I'm usually easygoing about most things. Like, I'm like, "All right, cool, I'm down." So anyway, I'm waiting around. So that was at 11 a.m. or so. It's like 11:30, 11:45. Still haven't heard a text back. And I'm like, what the hell? So then he texts me back like, "Hey, you want to meet at 12:15 at the spot?" And I was like, "Yeah, fine." So I'm annoyed as hell. I don't say anything, right? Because I tend to bottle things up until it's really important. Not saying that's a good thing. Just saying that's who I am. And so anyway, he said, let's meet at 12:15. So I'm like, cool. I was like, let's meet at this restaurant. So I get to the restaurant. He's not there. And I'm like, okay, surely he'll be here soon or he'll text me. So 12:30 comes, 12:40 comes. The restaurant manager, this tall white guy, cool guy, comes up. He's like, where's your date? I was like, I don't know. We said 12:15 and it's like 12:45. Then it becomes 1 o'clock, y'all. So I'm hot. Who does this? I'm hot. And this is supposed to be my dude, right? I'm hot. And dude is 40. I don't even want to say how old he is. He was 10 years older than I am. In his 40s. Okay. At least mid 40s. Let's say that. So anyway, hell, I just say he was 47. Anyway, so it's like 1 o'clock. And he texts me saying he's on his way. So I'm hot. So the manager keeps checking on me. And he's like, oh, man. He was like, dude is tripping. He's like, you've been here for a minute. I was like, I know. I said, give him shit when he comes in here. He's like, I got you. So I'm just thinking it's cool, right? Because we're like 7 months into dating. I feel like I can say things like that because I'm like, oh, whatever. So older dude gets there, sits down, greets me with the, hey, how you been? What? I'm sorry, who? And so I give him a hug or whatever. I'm like, yeah, but I'm obviously pissed. And so he's like, okay, what's good? You looked at the menu, and I'm sitting here like, yeah, sure did. Thinking in my head, I had a whole hour to do that almost. So anyway, so we're starting to order, and I just let it go. I'm like, whatever. But I'm fed up. And so anyway, so the manager comes over. And he's like, hey man, where you been? He's like, you let this pretty lady sit all by herself for like an hour. He's like, you almost missed your shot. And so older dude is like, oh man, he's all upset. Oh, I should just go back home. I mean, I don't even know why I'm out here, with words like that. So I'm just like amused as hell because I'm like, that's right. You getting some shit for your ass being tardy. So tardy for the party. Hope that's not trademarked. Anyway, so manager leaves. And so we order, and dude looks at me with the most evil eyes, y'all. And he leans in and he says in this very evil voice, I can't believe you did that. I would never do that to you. Have some white man come up to me and say all that stuff about me being late. How dare you? And I was just like, what? How dare I? Like, what? And I said, I can't control the manager for what he says. And I looked at him with a dead blank face, like, I can't help that. That's that man. And he looked at me like, man, stop playing. Because I wasn't going to admit that I told the dude to give him shit, but he should have gotten shit anyway. And the guy was going to give him shit whether I said it or not, because he was egregiously late. So anyway, he was so evil, y'all. I felt like I could feel his evil spirit. Now, mind you, this is a guy who is a holy roller, who's claiming to love Jesus and God and all things. And I thought he was so kind when I first met him, and he seemed very sweet and nice. But child, when that evil side came out, I was like, oh, it is Satan, honey. It is the devil. It is devil incarnate. Oh, boo, you had your mask on tight, but that thing dropped right here. That mask came all the way off. And so anyway, he's all pissed. And so we order food or whatever. And then he's still talking about, oh, I can't believe you. How dare you? If something like that happens and I'm late, you're supposed to protect my reputation and make sure that, you cover for me. And I'm sitting here like, bruh, like, first of all, you didn't ask me to do that. Second of all, I ain't gonna do that. So mind your business. So I'm just sitting there with the blank face looking at him like, this was the manager doing that. Like, I cannot control another person. Like, that's on you. You were late. He noticed. There's nothing I can do about that. So dude, then y'all, after we've ordered food, proceeds to get up from the table and leaves the restaurant. Now, mind you, the restaurant is in a residential area. My girlfriend was like, this is where it was? That's Shauna. Shauna was like, really? Where the hell would he go in this area? There's not like shopping stores close by. Okay, so dude gets up and leaves without saying anything, just looking at me very evilly. And y'all, this is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Like, do not be fooled by somebody that says, "Oh, I love Jesus, I go to church." Do not be fooled into thinking that this person is the end all be all. I think that was probably my problem. I was like, "Oh, he goes to church, he has a good job." Evaluate somebody on how they make you feel. Y'all hear me? Evaluate someone based on how they make you feel. It is not about how they look on paper. It is not about how they stack up when you talk about all their accolades and achievements. It is about who that person really is on the inside. And that's the lesson I learned with that. So dude leaves. And how long y'all think he was gone for? 2 minutes, 5 minutes. This dude was gone for like a good 15, 20 minutes. Didn't text. I ain't hit him either. I got my food. I'm eating. But I'm like, what the hell is happening here? Am I in the Twilight Zone? Like, am I being punked? Like, Ashton, come on out. For real. 20 minutes. Manager, of course, comes back because manager is like my little boo thing by now. He's my friend. And so he's like, where did he go? I was like, I have no idea. I was like, I think he was a little upset that we were jabbing him. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was like, don't be. He was like, so anyway, 20 minutes go by. I don't know if dude's coming back, but look here. I drove myself. I got money, whatever. So dude comes back in 20 minutes and sits down like nothing ever happened. Like, hey, so what? Who are you? Are you schizophrenic? I'm sorry, I'm not making fun of people who are schizophrenic because that is a serious disease. But are you crazy? Like, and I'm being funny about it. But are you crazy? So I was like, where did you go? He was like, oh, I just took a walk. Now, what I didn't know then, which I think now, is that dude was addicted to painkillers, I feel like. And, I think he probably went to go pop one of those off. So anyway, it was just weird, y'all. When things don't add up, it's just weird. You got to think about, why is it weird? What's not adding up? What is this? So anyway, he comes back like nothing happened and everything was normal. Then we leave and then we go to some park and walk around. And he's like, I told you to be okay if you just, calm down and be patient with me. I was like, what? So I just tried to like not sweat it and act normal. But I was just like, dude, that was the beginning of the end right there. It just was. But anyway, I thought that was hilarious because I'm like, who the hell does this? So when you see red flags, y'all, believe the red flags. Believe it the first time. I kept trying to feel like, oh, well, that was just because he was upset that one time. No, he showed his true colors. His mask came off. He was evil and had that potential. And I remember I thought, God, I couldn't be with somebody long term if I thought they had the potential to be this evil toward me. But then I was like, oh, well, maybe it's only when he's really upset. No, stop rationalizing. If you have been rationalizing in your relationship, when you see these yellow flags or red flags, stop. Stop. They're going to come back up. If it's something that you cannot deal with and you know it, address it immediately. Do it the first time. Save yourself some time. So anyway, of course, that relationship ended. Thank God. And I don't even want to call it a relationship because it was totally false. But thank God that thing is no longer existing because, man, I just didn't spot all the warning signs. I should have, and I didn't. But everything is a growth opportunity and a growth experience. So anyway, that was that. So back to, can men and women be friends? The answer to me is yes. What do you guys think though? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. So overall, the lessons that I've learned from the journey so far, always try to ask yourself, am I feeding my faith, my fantasy, or my fears? I'm not sure I address fantasy totally, but the gist of it is a lot of times when people go into relationships and marriages, from what I've seen and heard through friends, in terms of those who are married and experienced myself through dating, sometimes you can have expectations that you don't even realize. Like one of my girlfriends got married, had kids with her husband, and she didn't feel he was being the type of father she expected him to be. And I said, well, did you communicate that to him? And at first she was like, no, I just thought he'd be a better father. Those are expectations that you have that you haven't shared. I'll give you another example. I know someone else who got married, and her husband, when they were still dating and when they were engaged, would go out all the time and be out until all times of the night. And she would try to hang with him as long as she could. And sometimes she would tap out at like 2 in the morning. He'd keep going till 5, 6, whatever. Um, and it was fine while they were dating and engaged. But when they got married, she said, I thought he would be home more. I thought he wouldn't want to go out as much and that we would spend more time together as a couple versus him wanting to go out and stay out all night. I was like, did he do that when you were dating and engaged? She was like, yeah. I said, well, did you tell him that? You expected him to be home more? She was like, no, not really. I just assumed that when you got married, like this is what it is. It's now we're together all the time. And I'm like, well, that's an expectation that you have to communicate. So, and I try not to give my married friends advice because I'm not married. And I feel like you need somebody who's been there to give you advice. But I do give friend advice regardless. And so as a friend, no, even though I haven't been married, I encourage my friends and loved ones to communicate those expectations. And I try to communicate mine, and I want them to hold me accountable in communicating my expectations too, so I'm not disappointed if something doesn't happen that I haven't communicated. It sounds easy. It sounds like duh, but think back to a time when you had expectations and you didn't communicate them and how you felt when you were let down. So if you can, try to go through the front door and communicate those up front, especially when it comes to marriage before you get married, kids before you have kids, dating before you enter the relationship. Just what are your expectations? What are you thinking? And don't feel like you have to say that you have none. It's okay to have expectations. But I think that if you do have expectations, it's only okay if you can talk through them and if you can hear what the other person's expectations are and you guys can get to some kind of middle ground and have healthy check-ins with each other. I think that only good can come from that. So in your next situation where you're feeling some kind of way, ask yourself, are you feeding your faith, your fantasy, or your fears? And then get to work on yourself, not on that person, but on yourself, and figure out what you need and what you need to do in order to feel at peace. All right. That's it for today's 38 and Dating, everybody. Thank you guys for listening. I think this was a long one. So on the next couple of podcasts, I'm trying to figure out what angle to do. So let me know if you want an update on my dating life. And let me know what you think about having guests on. I would love to have more guests on. I really want to get the fellas on here because they hit me up all the time about this podcast. It's fantastic. I actually have more men listening sometimes than women. But I also want to get my girls on here. So let me know. Are there guests that you wanted in particular? Are there topics you want to discuss? I feel like it'd be great to have a he say, she say episode where guys are giving their opinion and women are giving theirs. So maybe we'll videotape it and it'll be fun and we'll put it on YouTube. Let me know what you think. Anyway, that's it for this episode of 38 and Dating. I'm your host, Lori J. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, LORIJAY, or hit me up on email and let me know your thoughts, LoriJH@gmail.com. You can always DM me, comment, whatever you need to do, but please, please, please let me know what you think about the podcast. We're on Apple, iTunes Podcast, Spotify, Acast, Castbox, Google Play, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're there. Thanks for listening to 38 and Dating, y'all. Have a good one.